A warm welcome to all of you who are using our Connections program and using this little AV component to it. Behind me on the wall is a picture of Jesus as the Good Shepherd. And it's kind of the typical image that people have of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. He has a sheep on his shoulders, and Jesus is all dressed up in these beautiful robes. And everything looks pretty serene and pretty kind of pacific and very calm. And that's often the image that we have of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. This is week 4 of our Easter season. And week 4 of the Easter season always focuses on Jesus as the Good Shepherd. The readings, whether they're from year A, B, or C, are always taken from chapter 10 of St. John's Gospel, where Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd. And this is a very popular, very positive, kind of a lovely image of Jesus. But if you read the Gospel this week, which is a very short Gospel, there seems to be a hint that something isn't quite right, that there's something wrong. Notice the language in the Gospel that we heard at Mass. Jesus says, "For those who believe in himself, in Jesus, none will perish and none will be taken." That implies that for those who do not believe in Jesus, some will perish and some will be taken. The language is kind of strong. Jesus says that if people believe in him, they will not perish. They're not going to be destroyed. They won't be taken or stolen or snatched away. So there's something a little ominous about Jesus' prediction in the gospel this week. Now, what's behind this? St. John was writing his gospel in the midst of a massive persecution against the Christians. His church believed and professed the divinity of Jesus Christ, and this led to a terrible persecution against it. But John has Jesus making a promise. In the midst of this suffering, Jesus still promises peace and security. Now, notice, Jesus doesn't promise that his followers will not suffer. He just promises them an inner peace and ultimate security. He promises his followers God's care and God's protection. The reason for this peace and security is that God the Father is still sovereign, even in the midst of persecution and suffering. Jesus says that God the Father is greater than all of the evil forces in the world, and that God's plan will ultimately be accomplished. So if I had to summarize the gospel today, it would be that because the Father is greater than all, Jesus can promise peace and security. God the Father is in charge, he's sovereign, and Jesus can promise peace and security to those who believe in him. Now, we all experience trials and challenges and problems today. They may not be as drastic as persecutions like St. John's Church and like many Christians today, especially in the Middle East. But we do experience trials because of our faith and because of life in general. We have to deal with finances and relationships and health issues. And sometimes we might get concerned about the values of our society, where our culture is going, and the difficulties of trying to be Christian in a more and more non-Christian society. So, we want the peace and security that Jesus promised his disciples. And we long for that type of security and that inner peace. Now, I think one of the ways that we can apply our gospel this week is that to achieve peace and security, we should develop the type of relationship with God the Father that Jesus did. Jesus had a relationship with God the Father, and that brought about an inner peace and security in Jesus' life. The relationship that we have with God is the relationship that a father has with his son or his daughter. And we are all God's sons and daughters. And we have to believe that if we have this relationship with God, it's going to be a loving, a tender, a warm, an intimate, and affectionate relationship with God the Father. This type of relationship with God is very practical. I do think it adds peace and security to our lives. I think that one of the beautiful lines in the gospel today is when Jesus says, "The Father and I are one." And we should all try to say that kind of as a mantra throughout this week. The Father and I are one. And if we really have that truth embedded in our hearts, I think we can have the peace and security that Jesus promises in the gospel this week.